This is treatment-free beekeeping, where we talk about the steps you can take or what it's like to try to keep bees treatment-free. From the beginning to hopefully a successful end, we'll go through the process as we experience it in our life on Wildflower Bee Farm. This is treatment-free beekeeping. Let's get started. This is Hank for treatment-free beekeeping at the Wildflower Bee Farm. Now, this hive you're probably seen quite a bit. It's our, I call it Dad's hive. That's the dad strain. 2 hives have survived without treatment. And I wanted to go through and talk a little bit about what that means to me and you. And you probably could disagree. And I know many people in the purist treatment-free group disagree with me. But here's kind of how I want to define it for what the work we're doing. Treatment-free really refers to me to not using concentrations of material, pesticides, and they can even be natural materials of a high concentration that makes them toxic to fight different diseases for honeybees. So that's really the treatment-free part. I don't have a problem, for example, with and this is just my own opinion. I'm not telling you what to do. Now this is interesting. This is the morning. Just if you watch this hive here, this is the morning, and I'm going to. There was some red pollen just came in. That's crazy. And this bee's plugging away. So when it comes to splitting or OTS on the spot, all of that kind of thing. Now the question of queen rearing comes up. I just received today our final Russian queens because we're trying to introduce the Russian sort of genetics into the farm, which we have not done before. And the Russian bees, when they originally came to North America, for 150 some years have been fighting all our diseases without any human intervention, without any human treatment. And so the idea being, if these bees are doing this job, why don't we have them on our property? So I was able to grab 6 different queens. 2 came with small nukes from a local provider, and they all came from a breeder in California who is a certified Russian bee propaganda breeder of bees that are kept under very strict conditions, and they're supposedly fairly pure with regard to the strain, but really Russian bees, if you do the history, are part carny, part this, part that. So it really, I don't know. We're going to see how they make out here on the farm. But you could argue and say, well, that's not normal. They're coming from Russia via California. So they're obviously grafted in a lab somewhere. They're not natural, but they certainly have been raised according to the provider, treatment-free. So just to summarize how I see it as being an absence of chemicals in just outside the hive. There are a number of reasons for that have to do for me with regard to the hive health. So when you look at the diathesis stress model of hive failure, which we put out in December, I talk about all the variables when combined may trigger either hive failure or hive success. And one of them has to do with the impact of these treatments at sublethal levels on, for example, the viability of drone sperm or the longevity of a queen, so that you don't get an immediate response where you see all these dead bees, but there's a mild exposure which then seems to cause some behavioral, in some cases later alterations. Could be brood, could be the quality of the eggs, how long the queen can lay. There's also some research on sensory deprivation or perceptual difficulties, bees having a hard time finding their home hive once they've been exposed to different types of chemicals. So that's how I kind of put it. Now, it's not exclusionary that anyone's a bad person if they do it differently. It's just the way I define it. You can define it any way you'd like. And that's why I say all beekeeping is good beekeeping. If people want to raise bees and use every pesticide or fungicide or whatever they can. The other point to point out is the Russian queens that came were all, and I'll put this in quotations, vaccinated for foul brood. Now, I had no choice because I couldn't find any other genetics, Russian genetics that I could get here. But when you do some digging, you find out that the queens were exposed to a version of foul brood, which was in a dry state, which is sort of the old way we used to get vaccines, when we would get a little bit of something introduced to our system that caused our antibodies to kick up, and then when we experienced the real disease or virus, whatever it was, it supposedly helped us. So I was originally very negative against the idea, but when I did some more digging, found out that, hey, it's a way to. Now you could argue that totally destroys. There's a bee taking out, looks like a hive beetle. I've watched a number of the bees bring out hive beetles today when I was doing my observations on this hive especially. So that's my definition. Treatment-free just means an absence of introducing chemicals, whether it be fungicides, pesticides, or even natural products of a high concentration designed to kill something in the hive or alter something in the hive. Now, I'll just close with a brief discussion of this hive and the other hive that we have. The characteristics of this hive appear to be quite similar to what we hear about with Russian bees and other bees that have developed different behaviors in order to survive. And a big one I saw with these folks is they started very slowly. In fact, I didn't think they'd survive this long, and almost obsessed with cleaning, just obsessed with the whole idea of cleaning. And so the late start, the cleaning, the ability to, when you look at the hive beetles and other things they're taking out, you wonder, that's another characteristic of the Russian bees. So I'm going to have to see. Now, the other thing that concerned me about this hive last November was how packed it was in November. So it went into and it's only an 8 frame, and it didn't seem to consume a great deal of food, because in the spring it still had a frame or 2 left, and it's only an 8 frame. So there's something going on here. So I'm not splitting them or anything yet, but I'm certain the end of June I'll be able to create other hives from this, and hopefully the other as well. And I'll keep you apprised of how the Russians are doing. This is Hank for Treatment-Free Beekeeping at the Wildflower Bee Farm. Well, how do you classify treatment-free, if you do it all? And am I too narrow in saying it's only about the lack of use of chemicals, or is it more than that? Let me know. Have a great one. To learn more about our project, make sure you go to wildflowerbeefarm.com. There you can find further information on the latest research articles we've put out, find out where you can pick up some t-shirts, and all the other interesting things we're doing on the farm. That's wildflowerbeefarm.com.